Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Maqbool, with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is in reference to what is going on in the region with the Waqf amendment passing into law. And this is, of course, something very, very important happening in the region in India. And we've seen a lot of discussions around what the Prime Minister has spoken, and, of course, in the different ways that the Congress party is also being viewed over with this particular rhetoric going on. And, of course, talking about how the Prime Minister is making derogatory and anti-Muslim remarks, referring, of course, to a statement by Mr. Modi with regards to the Waqf properties that he said, if handled properly, would not result in the Muslims of India being puncture victims. And so we're going to be taking a look at what that means, particularly in terms of the politics that both Congress and the BJP has been playing over the front, and what exactly does this mean in terms of the bill and law and the impact that it creates over Muslims. That's going to be our first segment of the show. Our next one is going to be taking a look at how, of course, in a multitude of steps taken by the US's administration, we've also seen another one coming in from Mr. Trump with regards to a slash in funding for Harvard, a $2.3 billion slash, which is something that is considered part of many other private institutions as well that have been called as anti-Semiticist with reference to what is going on in terms of the education departments as well, with Harvard responding to the fact that it's going to maintain its stance and that no government, irrespective of whatever party it belongs to, has any say in the matters of the private institution with regards to its hiring and with regards to its student protests. And we've also heard issues with regards to deportation also being planned of some foreign students that were part of the protests that were pro-Palestinian on the campuses of Harvard and other universities. So we're going to be taking a look at what that means in terms of this relationship between the administration and the universities and the impact that it creates over such political dialogue. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Faisal, and we've also been joined online by former Ambassador Dr. Jamil Khan. Thank you very much, Dr. Jamil, for joining us in the debate. And I'll start with you in terms of what's going on within India and in the ways that the BJP and the Congress party are talking about the Waqf amendment. And I want your perspective on this particular bill that is now law in terms of what is the ways in which it is being politicized and how it impacts the people of the country, particularly Muslims.
All right. As always, it has been a pleasure, and it is a pleasure to be with you and with your panel today after a brief absence of mine because of my traveling. So coming on your point which you have raised, topic, that is, there's no surprise because consistently India is trying to marginalize it, the BJP government is trying to really make their grip stronger in the governance system by all fair and foul means. So therefore, this enactment and this bill which has been passed, that is also one in the same direction. I take it in that stream. Now, so far as the language is concerned, very well crafted language, as a matter of fact, very well aligned language of the amendment, which aligns with the international law. And they have included the woman in the amended this Waqf law in which the woman should also be in the board, and they should change and reconfigure the board so that they have a full grip on the billions and billions of the Waqf property, and particularly belonging to the Muslim. So this seems to be the mens rea behind the whole thing. Now, coming on this particular act, yes, it's basically they want to have an centralized command and control of the whole financial and administrative governance of this Waqf properties in particular. And even appointment of non-Muslims. Previously, it was not there. Now it's appointment of non-Muslim in the board and in the governance system. That has also been included. So that is very clear what I just described, in my very beginning of the deliberation of this debate. So the regulations are there. They are going to make it more strict, because from this amendment of law, they would also make the rules and regulation that would further try to tighten up the grip of the administration of the whole mechanism. So that seems to be the whole thought behind the exercise of the BJP government. And the establishment of the National Waqf Tribunal, and we know what to talk of tribunal, even the apex courts there, how they are giving decisions about the Babri Mosque and about the other matters pertaining to the minorities there. So this tribunal would be totally under control of the administration and the government, and they are just forming those tribunals that in case the international community feels that there's something extra legal, extra constitutional, they should be able to address. The very futuristic approach they have really brought into the whole mechanism, and they say that they are going to modernize and they are going to ensure the greater transparency and securing, they want to secure the rightful use of the religious assets. So now what rightful use of the religious assets they are going to have, we can all interpret about it. So this act, I would feel that they could very conveniently be misused. And they are now saying that they have done it because the property was being misused. As a matter of fact, that has been drawn. This law has been drawn with the whole planning behind the game is that they wanted to really have basically the entire property under their management system, and where they and by the way, so many people are linked financially, religiously, spiritually with the entire this architect of this governance. So the BJP basically would have now full grip on it. And by the way, the way they are doing other things, and it has already has sparked the protests in West Bengal and other places. Also, people getting killed, people getting arrested. There seems to be more in the offing, although the Congress is also criticizing that. But I think now the damage has been done, and they are going to only implement this. And then that regard, they are trying to take the advantage of their positioning in the geopolitical landscape, and like they are getting away with what they are doing in their atrocities in Kashmir, what they are doing against the religious minorities, and which we don't really, we've been mentioning in various deliberations and various programs, but it has also been mentioned by the Commission of Religious Freedom, United States, and they have given evidence about it. So then nothing is happening around because India is now has become and has is trying to exploit its position, and that position is containment of China. That position is its geopolitical. That position is the way it's the Indians are facilitating with their bases, with Gujarat naval base and other defense agreements with the superpower of the world, the United States. So that way they are going. And the United States basically in their own for the furtherance of their foreign policy, they do try and ignore affect international law or even their own recommendation of their freedom of religious commission, and that's probably they'll get away very conveniently with this amendment of law. Also, what they have carried out, they have not only done the marginalization against Muslims, but they have done it against various other communities. And it seems that they are going to really continue to do that against the minorities. And this seems that it's going to be unabated, although the world should be made cognizance, and the various segments of the societies around the world, they, I believe, have to really raise their points. And let's see how they are going to unfold and how they are going to implement. But my assessment, what I feel at this point in time, based on the contours of the comment and what they've been statements they've been making, I feel that that's how they are going to address this problem as well.
Right.
So let's wait and see what happens.
Right. And Faisal, I want your take on this as well, because in particular, of course, there's a lot of discussions going around against Prime Minister Modi with the Congress party, with the kind of rhetoric that he's put forward in the statements he's made. But there are others who are saying the Congress party is no better. I want your perspective in terms of what really is the on-ground situation when we take a look at these particular parties, the incumbent government, of course, and the opposition, and the Congress party in particular. Are there any elements within this political infrastructure in India that are actually championing the rights of Muslims?
Yes, and obviously when we look at today's India and the kind of politics BJP is playing, I think is the perfect politics for today's India. Reason being, they know right now that secularism would be not good for BJP and even the establishment of India. It knows that secularism is not good at all for India. Reason being, they themselves know that there are more than 32 separatist movements within India, and the only way to counter it is that the majority, they want to keep that intact with them. And of course, majority is Hindus, and the hardliners of Hindus, of course, they are Hindutva ideology, and that Hindutva ideology is working really well for India. Reason being, BJP is coming into power again and again, and of course Congress and other parties that used to be considered as secular parties, though that too is a very rogue kind of phenomenon, because when it comes to their treatment of Muslims, their treatment of Sikhs, their treatment of the other religions, of course they were not that good, the way they consider themselves that they are seculars. When it comes to Muslims, of course, bashing Muslims and marginalizing Muslims, it not only serves the purpose of BJP and the establishment, but of course it serves the purpose of keeping the vote bank intact. Reason being, there is a hatred amongst Hindutva ideology against the Muslims and the other minorities as well, because they believe that all of these people, they used to be Hindus before, and they converted and they betrayed the people of India, they betrayed the original people of India. And when it comes to Hindutva ideology, of course, the very first since the very first day, they had in their mind that the 1,000 years of the subjectism, which is always considered as the Muslims were rulers for 1,000 years, and of course the Hindus, though they were majority, but they were of course simply ruled by Muslims, and Muslims were the minorities, and they have that kind of sentiment in them that keeps on giving them more and more hate against the Muslim. And when it comes to other religions, like Sikhism is a religion, known religion, but when it comes to a Indian Constitution does not classify Sikhism as an extra religion or a separate religion. They consider them as a branch of Hinduism. And when it comes to overall situation, of course this serves really well for them, and that is why we are seeing that one by one all of the liberties and all of the secular liberties which were there for Christians, for Muslims, for Sikhs, we can't see that anymore. And that is why Waqf bill is entirely a racist, and of course a racist bill by a racist party, a political party of India, and India itself is a racist country right now, because they are marginalizing Muslims day by day, and the end game is that they simply want them to settle elsewhere, or if they want to stay in the country, then of course they have to think about whether they really want to be Muslims or they want to change themselves.
But my question with regards to any party championing Muslim rights still stands, particularly the Congress.
None, not at all. Reason being, when it comes to Congress itself claims that it's a secular party, claims that it is standing for the Muslims and for the rights of the minorities and all. But on ground, of course, they themselves know that vote bank is not in their favor, because vote bank is the majority, and the majority vote bank is hate filled, already hate filled, because the media works in that way, then establishment works in that way, then BJP, the party, the ultimate the winner party, that is going that way. Reason being, they know that it works really well for today's India, and that is why on media, on social media, everywhere we see hatred against the Muslims, and that is why we see Muslims always getting targeted when it comes to any law which is being brought to be amended in the constitution, in the parliament, and of course it gets applauded from whole India. Reason being, because majority is standing with BJP and majority is standing with the establishment, and establishment is entirely in the hands of
Right.
Hindutva ideology.
Right, and Farrukh, I want your perspective on this as well, in terms of where the politics of India stands at the moment with regards to these structures, and in the ways in which whether or not any of these rights or these people, particularly Muslims, matter in the true sense, or is it just a political fight or a leverage that is being used by different political parties in order to bring down each other. And so when we talk about stances that really matter to the politics of India and how these particular bills or amendments are coming forward, what are the angles we need to take a look at?
Right, Sana, thank you very much. First of all, let me actually, because earlier you asked about anybody standing up for Muslim rights. So there are people, but they are niche parties. There are especially parties which rely on identity politics. For example, Abbasi's party is actually something that uses Islam as its identity, and of course these people thrive in such kind of circumstances because there is division, and othering of one community benefits them as well. But when it comes to these two major parties, BJP and Congress, amazingly, before 1990s, what was happening was that BJP or its previous iterations were closer to minority rights, because at that time it was thought that Hinduism believes in inclusion and tolerance and all, and because of Indira Gandhi's emergency, the situation was different. These guys would actually go out for other people's rights as well. But then one thing happened. One report dropped, and back in, of course, it was finalized in early 90s. One report about India's caste composition. And there you realize that majority seems to belong to oppressed classes, right? Dalits and OBCs, right, other backward castes. So they would comprise a majority, but they did not have the quota, or for that matter, the kind of reservation that was needed. It was later on fixed by Gujarat and other people too, and Manmohan Singh. But at that time, I think decision was taken that they are going to go for a populist turn, right? And they went and demolished Babri, and after that, whatever kept on happening is before you. So my humble submission is, while it is useful to look at India through a religious lens, the actual problem is it is always economy stupid, and it is always the issue of resources which are monopolized by two upper castes, which don't actually cross 10% of the entire population. So what to do? Use religion and populism as the opiate of the masses, and then keep on pushing them towards this side. And it kind of sort of works. But when you talk about the overall situation, the way they do it is beautiful. And honestly, one has to use this word because it is a magic trick. While they are themselves based in identity politics, Hindu identity politics, they would use the name of secularism. And in secularism, it makes sense. For example, when they wanted to actually go for unified civil code, they called it secular, civil code, although it denied Muslims their own rituals and stuff like that, right? Now again, these reforms or changes are being done in the name of secularism. But here, the context matters more, because which party is introducing this bill, these amendments to Waqf bill? The party that demolished Babri, that wants to actually take down Gyan Wapi Mosque and Imam Barga as well. And by the way, to this date, they are said to be somewhere around between 18,000 to 30,000 mosques and Islamic sites which Hindu extremists believe are contentious, which were built on the remains of old structures, so they want to actually bring it down. There's one example that is amazing, and that is of Sana, whenever you talk about India, what building comes to mind?
Shahi Mosque?
Taj Mahal.
Taj Mahal. Yeah.
So they claimed that it was a Hindu temple or Hindu place of worship by somebody called Taj Mahal, and it was demolished, and then this building was built. So good luck with demolishing Taj Mahal. You are going to shoot yourself in the foot, nobody else. But 18,000 to 30,000 buildings. So what happens? Through this, they include non-Muslims, and who are going to be the people who are picked to be on these boards. They are essentially going to be BJP or Hindutva's, firebrands, and they are going to try to actually ensure that most of these buildings, of course, had it been about Gyan Wapi, or it could have been about Shahi Imam Barga or a couple of buildings, right? Because they have huge claims about that, birthplaces of their gods, and so there could be some kind of arrangement. But when you talk about 18,000 to 30,000, that means bloodbath throughout the country. And the sad thing is, and this has been proven by the algorithms that you see on social media, that you see everywhere else, that hate, anger, and intolerance actually sells more. So BJP uses all of these things, and they are going to put it to good use. Good use as in, putting it to political use. And sadly, when it comes to, I understand that you have to move on, but I just wanted to point out, Congress is the party which started all this. They started by adopting all these Hindu symbolism for Indian state. They are the people who unlocked, Rajiv Gandhi actually unlocked Babri Mosque. These are the people who actually have been believing in dog whistles. So guess what? You always get crowded out by people who know how to use it better. Unfortunately, while I think that Narendra Modi does not believe in this any longer, because he knows that he has the kind of stature which will appeal to the entirety of India, sadly there are people in his party which have learned that any kind of outrage, through that they can get national prominence and they can easily replace Narendra Modi. So this is essentially that kind of snakes and ladders that is going on.
Right. Dr. Jamil Khan, I'd also like your perspective on our next segment, which takes a look at the relationship with the private universities and institutions that were involved in student protests on campuses which are pro-Palestinian, including Harvard, and we've seen the stance that they have kept, and in response to which we've seen a slashing in the funding of $2.3 billion. I want your take on this particular nexus, or this rife between what is going on with these universities in the Trump administration, and what do you think of that in terms of the U.S. state or the U.S. government actually standing up against universities over this issue?
Well, they have pressure. In fact, they are under tremendous pressure of the Israeli lobby. And they have been always, as a matter of fact, in the U.S. structure and U.S. administration, may it be a financial administration, may it be the policy-making people, or may it be the media or any other organ of the government or the private entity. They all are under well orchestrated grip of the Israeli lobby. And that is what Professor John Shamir has already indicated in his book, and he has given sufficient grounds and evidence to prove this structure. Having had in the mind, now let's see the implementation of some of the law and the possible enactment, which is going to take place perhaps very soon. Only they are trying to think that how they will secure two-third majority for that amendment. I'm coming on that. But right now, what they are doing is that, yes, all the people who had raised their voice, whether through social media, through legal protest of freedom of speech under freedom of speech, First Amendment, or through other mechanism, very legally, whatever the students or other people have been doing, now they are being picked up and now they are being identified. As a matter of fact, they are being identified by the same lobby, what I've just mentioned, and other people. So they are very clear. They are not mentioning, the administration is not mentioning any word about it. And they have said that anyone, particularly those who don't have the citizenship, we will use our administrative rights, which is we can reject visa of any person, whether it's a work visa, a student visa, or any other kind of visa. But those who have the green card, we will also take action against them. And they would then, they are utilizing the law, which is a hate crime law, and they've stretched it to anti-Semitism. So that's how they are doing. Now, Harvard University. Now, these universities, in fact, they are the main resource with the U.S. administration or any the government, or for that matter, state of the United States, America. And then they are the one, these universities are instrumental and have been instrumental always in all kind of innovation, in all kind of contribution towards the science, technology, the literature, and all. The Harvard University's publication and the whatever periodical newspapers, the research papers, what they publish in a year, the entire the Arab world do not publish those many publications. So that is a contribution they are making. And now what is happening is that they are scaling down the funding, rather they are curtailing the funding of university like Harvard, and Harvard, the university president, the student union president, and others, they have really taken a stand that we are not going to let it happen because this would tantamount to the violation of the constitutional provision, amendment, the constitutional amendment 1. So we are not going to do that. So altogether, they are freezing about $2.3 billion of various universities, and out of which there are universities like Harvard, British Columbia, and they're just going for a very wider crackdown on the campuses which they have started. The scores of students have already been deported, visa cancelled, and federal funding is suspended to Harvard, and they have gone to the court under the civil, they have filed a civil lawsuit, which would take several months if it is put on a fast track by the court, which I doubt. Otherwise, several years, and by that time, Republicans would be completing their tenure. So that is how they are trying to have their grip on those students, particularly international students, who were seen to have used their legal right to raise the voice against the atrocities, against the violation of human rights. And it's not this community, student community, all over Europe. You have seen those people who have the respect for the international law and a violation of the human right. They have been raising this slogan. But America has taken the lead, as always, and they have started taking now the ideological audit of the universities, that is also being would take place, and in which they will determine what activities they are doing, and their academic side would be affected. So they are also pushing these universities that admission you will not give. Admission, you will do the profiling of the people, particularly overseas students, before giving them the admission. So the overseas students, those talented kids, they will now be profiled by the visa officer whether they should get the visa or not. And the admission committee are now, the admission committee is being reformed and reconstituted. This is what they are asking these universities to do that, and perhaps they will make them, they'll pressurize them so much that they might as well prevail on. So we would see how the courts are going to react to it. There are so many statements against it. Stephen Walt has given a statement against it, that the knowledge of and the power of the nation is based on these universities. Likewise, there are other very prominent people. They have given their statements. But to what extent this the world, 21st century, China is making maximum investment in research and innovation. America, which has always been thriving and has always created their soft image through the research and innovation, if they start really imposing these kind of measures, then they are damaging their own the peculiarity of research and innovation and being first in the world. So this would impact a lot of academic activities and the research and innovation. Yes.
Right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Saab, for joining us and sharing your views with us on the show. Faisal, I'll come to you with reference to what we've seen, particularly in conversation with the ways in which we have seen the Israeli lobby, as the ambassador was also referring to, take part in these decision making. But I want your take in terms of what the U.S. administration points out in terms of prioritizing America, in terms of the interests of the people of the U.S. And that, of course, includes its students, its brains, and most importantly, the institutions that are investing in this human capital. How does that align with the ways in which America actually puts forward its values and in the ways that it wants to inculcate that as part of its educational institutes?
Yes, so-called champions of human rights and freedom of speech, we have always been highlighting US as a country known for. But of course, when it comes to this very aspect, when we were seeing that not all of them who were protesting against whatever is happening in Middle East, especially the genocide which is taking place of Gazans at the hands of Israelis. I mean, the protesters who were coming out and protesting against it, they were not only Muslims, they were Christians, they were Jews, students as well, as from throughout the world, and majority of them, they were the American national students, and there were a large number of Jewish students as well who were part of it, who knew that whatever is happening in Israel, of course, it is a political sort of ideology of Israel that is actually conducting whole chapter of genocide. And of course, when it comes to Zionism, Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. And when it comes to Judaism and the followers of Judaism, even we have been seeing the followers of Judaism, in Europe as well, they were protesting against it. And when this very, protests, these were when they were, being held, of course, we remember that the previous, Joe Biden's regime, they have been, of course, taking an action against them, and that is why all of these fresh voters, they did not vote for him. And in this whole scenario, an institution like Harvard, other institutions like MIT, other institutions like Columbia University, and many more, all of these universities are known for garnering the brains of the world, because they are the ones who are going to take the reins of the future. I am pretty much sure many of them who are studying here, later on in their lives, they will be becoming the part of the administrative setup of US. And I am pretty much sure many of them who were protesting, they would turn out to be the, at the big positions within America. But right now, of course, if we have a look at Congress, if we look at both of the political parties of US, if we look at the think tanks, all of them, they are in the very deep pockets, and them deep pockets are, of course, the Zionists, and then them Zionists. Of course, we know that Zionism was actually the brainchild of Theodor Herzl. Theodor Herzl himself used to call that he does not belong to any religion, he is a secular. But of course, he saw this opportunity of creating a menace like Zionism, and he created that. and then the filth of the political filth of throughout the world, he brought that in there in shape of the politicians. And then Farrukh, I'm not talking about the people at large. I'm just talking about
be careful when
I'm not talking about the people at large. I'm talking about the political filth of that time that was brought in there, and then people like all of these people who've been becoming prime ministers of Israel, and all of them, they follow that hate-filled ideology of Zionism. They follow that ideology that believes in hatred, that believes in evil, and that is why we are seeing that these people, when they are conducting this genocide in Gaza, of course they have no shame about it, and they are defending it. And even the people they are investing on in America, even they have no shame about it. They are coming up with what kind of solutions? They are coming up with the solutions like these. Universities like Harvard and Columbia, they are getting these kind of squeezes just because of one reason, and that reason is that, of course, they don't allow anyone to be speaking against Zionism, speaking against Israel, and they want everyone to speak against, of course, anyone who speaks for the rights, who speaks for the freedom of speech. Now they will be going after them, and in coming future, of course, we won't see US being recognized as a country who has any respect for rights, any respect for human rights.
Right, and Farrukh, I want your perspective on this, particularly in terms of what does that say in terms of the future of the values that have been put forward, particularly in terms of freedom of speech and the right to debate, and the kind of rights that Faisal is saying are no longer there.
Right, Sana. First of all, the problem, I think, is that we are mixing up many issues simultaneously, right? First of all, the tragedy that we are actually bemoaning with Harvard. Do you know how much money was actually kept away from Harvard University? $2.2 billion, right? Give that money to Pakistan and see what we can do with that within 6 months in education only, right? It is no tragedy, of course, there are other concerns as well. But first of all, let me focus on this Palestinian issue only, because we are not merely talking about Israel, we are talking about what the US government is doing within their own country. And the people who actually voted against Joe Biden or kept on blaming him for the crackdown on these students. At that time, there is a term for them, and it is called useful idiots. They were used by the other side, and they won, and people perhaps could not see that this is going to happen. It is happening, but that is not all. There are 2 cases against American universities right now, and you have to listen to the right wings people and also people from Silicon Valley. The first one is that they have an inherent leftist bias, and that bias actually is so aggressive that they don't allow their right wing to thrive at all, or even though legitimate thinkers from the right side and not religious or right, the economic right also is also cut out or shouted down. So this is an argument that has been going on for past 10 years, especially when Trump was in government for the first time. Since then, they have actually reasserted and they demand that this be corrected. The second thing is these universities have more or less, and that is Silicon Valley is concerned, that they have made themselves irrelevant because they keep on focusing on procedures. You have to get PhD, you have to write a dissertation, and you have to structure this way and that way. What is going to be the utility of that, nobody knows. But then, on the other side, when these geniuses go to Silicon Valley, they cannot prove their capacity because most of the Silicon Valley heavy hitters are school or college dropouts. So you have to understand that there is a zeitgeist about these issues. But having said that, of course, it is important to keep on protesting for human rights, but why should I, who most likely is a guest in a country like America, why should I be using my liberties? Why not let the Americans do the same? And very quickly, here's another thing. We keep on focusing on Palestine, right? Which is horrible. Gaza, whatever is happening is inhuman. Nobody actually questions that. Question is, there are more people dying in Sudan. Have you heard any protest about Sudan by any other of these geniuses? No, because they were used by the other side to bring down the other side. And once it is done, now they are being through, asked to leave, and now they cannot face the consequences.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the debate. As always, that's all that we have time for. We'll now see you tomorrow.